Hello and welcome to our Maritime Innovations interview series. Ahead of APM 2026, we are honored to speak with Dr. Piyush Raj, who leads Maritime Technology and Innovation initiatives for DNV Maritime Advisory across Southeast Asia, Pacific, and India. Piyush brings a rare blend of perspectives: 8 years at sea as a marine engineer, hands-on experience with new build deliveries and shipyard projects, and years of advisory leadership covering engineering, safety culture, due diligence, and technology qualification. In our conversation today, we go straight to the questions that matter for maritime leaders. Which technologies are truly moving beyond pilots into real fleet impact? Where the gap still is between promise and operational reality, what AI can realistically deliver today, and what leaders should prioritize over the next 3 to 5 years, especially around data quality, interoperability, and scaling capabilities across fleets. Welcome, Piyush. It's so great to have you with us today.
Thank you, Joachim, for a great introduction. Yes, the topics which you mentioned are really very interesting. Let's deep dive into it straight away.
Let's start with the reality on the ground. Many shipping companies talk about innovation. Which technologies are truly moving from pilots into real fleet impact right now?
So, if you think of what is really impacting moving from pilots where companies are getting benefited, is moving to more decision support from just remote monitoring. So data is now easily available beyond the known report information from ship. It has expanded to sensor data, supported by a lot of shore-based information coming from weather companies, from designers, from fuel model makers, naval architects. So this is actually leading way to add decision support for onboard crew and also for decision makers onshore. So earlier, what was just monitoring the information coming from ship is now slowly moving to supporting the decisions both on board and onshore. I think that's one area where we should focus on, and the recent advent of artificial intelligence is only helping it propagate further.
And that's a good point. And it leads to the next challenge. Where do you see the biggest gap between technology promises and operational reality?
Perhaps the biggest gap is in how the data is contextualized, cleaned, and prepared for uses at various places. Um, uh, to the extent that it scares me at times that the data which we start using for automated decision making using large language models or other artificial intelligence tools need to be standardized so that you have the same information from one vessel to other vessel being compared. So you need to compare apple to apples. You need to ensure that you have information which is in the right context. Uh, Maritime is a very international business. You have makers from all over the world, and they do not call the same information with the same tag name. They do not refer to perhaps the same convention. There is an ISO standard, and stakeholders, including us, we have been working towards it. But that I see still as one of the major challenges as maritime industry deep dives into making this data useful for their day-to-day decision making.
Yeah, makes perfectly sense. Now let's zoom in on AI because it's everywhere right now. What are realistic AI use cases in the maritime today, and where should expectations be a bit more cautious?
AI, as of now, where it stands, and again, building a bit on the challenge which I mentioned, is is good where we can use it for, say, situational awareness use cases such as object detection using video and image analytics, also doing volume search kind of job where you have to find out a set of information, say, from manuals or from emails. Uh, then it can also work on top of compliance related data, because maritime industry has been working on top of cleaned, verified compliance related information for some time. So that data is now ripe to build on top and create tools and decision support system which can grow further into performance monitoring, into making, say, for example, voice optimization or looking at route optimization. I think these are the areas where AI can really help. We can go beyond physics and information which is calculated theoretically. We can look at how that can come from data and can be more representative of the real asset out there. Uh, where we need to be careful is when we try to use this information in a context outside where it is originating from. And that is the main problem also of if you're only using the language learning models, because they are very generic or general in nature. So unless it is used with the right amount of data and in the right context, it becomes difficult, especially when you're trying to use across the fleet kind of operations. You need to be very careful about the challenge, what I mentioned earlier, that you need to standardize the data, contextualize it in the proper way so that, you can take it across the fleet and wider applications.
Thanks so much for this kind of clear orientation on this topic. Looking ahead, I'd like to ask about what becomes critical next. So what is one capability maritime companies underestimate today but will become critical within the next 3 years?
I think keeping your data of good quality and standardized and clean is something which is very underrated. Uh, uh, Maritime industry still works primarily on manually reported information coming from ships. Uh, Only recently, with the communication system improving a lot, sensor data is making headway into decision support. But we need to remember that the sensor data which currently comes from the vessel were not designed to be used for the purpose we are currently looking at. They were designed for somebody being on board and looking at it from an expert perspective and taking decisions physically at the location. So when we collect this information, combine it together with manually reported information, I think it is important to highlight that this is the place to start. Also, one other thing which needs to be emphasized is, instead of trying to do a lot of things with a lot of information everywhere, maritime companies should rather focus on one or two use cases. Start small on getting the right amount of information, clean, contextualize it, pick up one or two use cases from their own operations, create very clear benchmark or KPIs to measure what has been the impact, how this experiment is going to help them in making their decisions better. And then once they have done it, where they have found the method to standardize the data, uh, make the interoperability more uh, commonplace across their fleet, then it makes sense to look at, say, how they can scale up.
To wrap up, let's turn this into one practical takeaway for leaders. If you could give one practical piece of advice to maritime leaders trying to future-proof their operations, what would it be?
Leave aside the buzzwords, focus into what is helping your people, build trust in AI. It's very important. All of us have some exposure in our personal lives, but to build the trust in AI takes a lot more. It starts from what I initiated about, or what I told about the challenge in data, but then you need to go through the each step, build trust in whether the data is getting exposed outside the entity. How do you ensure that your data privacy is assured? How do you ensure that the cybersecurity part of it is ensured? How do we ensure that people who are creating and using these models do not build in bias? So I think the most important takeaway would be that when we look at, say, AI, you have to have the human still in the center who are going to use it and replace some of the existing methods. So if we think from that perspective, build trust in AI, pick up one or two key areas where they can start small and go through the entire journey would be the key message to shipping companies.
Piyush, thank you. This was exactly the kind of orientation I think leaders need: clear, practical, and realistic. Thank you so much for your time today.
Great. Thank you, Akim. Really appreciate you taking time to talk on this subject. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.